Hello, everyone. So, I wanted to just pop in here today and talk about symptoms versus root causes because I find that so many women are led down the path of looking at their symptoms individually rather than taking that deep that step back to take a holistic collective view of what their body is telling them. Um, there are a lot of different symptoms that can all be attributed back to basically a hormonal imbalance. Now, there's a couple of other imbalances that are aligned or involved with a hormonal imbalance, but basically, hormones run our show. The problem is, even if I tell or even if you're told it's your hormones, a lot of women only look at a certain few based on their symptoms. So, if you're dealing with burnout, you're going to look at adrenals, right? That is very common now. That is very, very, very common now. If you're battling PMS, you're going to look at your reproductive hormones. If you're battling anxiety, perhaps you're going to look at the neurotransmitters kind of fall into this, but maybe you're going to look at serotonin or dopamine. If you're looking at cravings, you're going to look at insulin, right? Now, what happens when we are dealing with symptoms like acne or belly fat or depression, mood swings, gas and bloating, even autoimmune disease, brain fog? These are all symptoms that a lot of women deal with. I don't know a single woman who has only one symptom. I focus on helping women overcome chronic fatigue and burnout, which is exhaustion, and it's highly related to a hormonal imbalance with cortisol and the adrenals. However, all of my clients come in with at least 3 other complaints. I mean, because we're human, our symptoms are a story. They're ultimately a story of what our health and our bodies are telling us. And it's a story, like it's almost like a pounding on the wall, like, or the door, like, please, for the love of God, listen to what I'm telling you. Unfortunately, we as women, we know what we're dealing with. We know it sucks. We know that this is awful and frustrating and confusing as all ghetto, right? And so we go with these symptoms to our doctors or sometimes dietitians and sometimes other practitioners, and we get symptom specific treatments. We get something separate for the PMS versus the mood swings versus the fatigue. We get blood tests that are based on a protocol that's decades out of date, and it's only specifically related to what somebody decided 60 years ago was what to look at for brain fog, for example, or burnout. We get point in time hormone tests that are only telling us a story for a single day, a point in time, or a week maybe. We as women, we know our hormones fluctuate. They fluctuate daily, they fluctuate monthly. We have to know the whole picture, and we can't just take a point in time snapshot and say, well, this must be it. And looking at only the symptoms means we're missing the interconnectivity between all of our parts of our body. Yes, a whole bunch of our symptoms are related to hormonal imbalance. The problem is we need to know what that hormonal imbalance is, and we need to stay focused on what the root causes are so that we're looking at solutions that actually reverse and rebalance the root cause. So think of it like a tree. Root causes of the imbalances are the root under the surface that we just don't really see and feel and have much awareness of. But those root cause imbalances have grown this tree. Now, your tree might be small. You might only have like a sapling with a couple of imbalances, or your tree might be huge and have all the things going on: migraines, acne, heavy periods, cysts, depression, anxiety, gas and bloating, gallbladder issues, autoimmune, brain fog, fatigue, cravings, belly fat, all the things. So there's a really big tree. And now the bigger the tree gets, the more disconnected the symptoms start to seem to you, right? Like there's a few you might be like, well, that's obviously my reproductive hormones or fatigue, adrenals, right? However, there's something has grown that tree and is growing that tree and feeding that tree of symptoms. And just like if we had a tree this is a bad tree, this is an evil tree that we've grown, not a good tree. Just like if we found this evil tree in the forest and we were like, oh, that's causing all of the havoc in the kingdom, we wouldn't start just chopping down one limb at a time, right? We would go and we burn that sucker to the ground. We would get rid of the roots and everything so that tree didn't grow back, right? I'm reading a bit of a science fiction-y book right now, so I think that's what this analogy is coming from. But if we're dealing with what's going on with this tree, we don't just look at the leaves, we don't just look at the branches, we don't just even look at the trunk. We need to know what's going on under the surface. And so when we're talking about these hormonal symptoms that we're getting, and we're getting these surface level treatments like medication, sleep more, use your willpower against those cravings, more caffeine, do more yoga, clean eating, exercise, supplements, fad diets, all these things that we're so often given and prescribed to help the symptom-specific issue, surgery in some cases too. Well, it's not fixing or addressing what's going on under the surface. And that's what's so, so important. All of these symptoms, all of these imbalances, like I said, so interconnected. Your whole body is interconnected. It's not the adrenals are like this own entity and nothing ever affects them. We always need to make sure, like, is it the adrenals themselves? So what we're talking about here, when we're dealing with all of these symptoms that most women are dealing with, and specifically exhaustion and what comes with that usually is anxiety and mood swings, irritability, belly fat, cravings for carbs and sugar, a lot of period problems, digestive issues that are just insane, and even like the more subtle imbalances, like nervous system is, wired and tired, or you can't sleep, brain fog, or constipation, and peeing in the middle of the night, and maybe gallbladder issues, acne, all these symptoms. This is what happens when fatigue starts. All of these other symptoms start to stem out. So instead of looking at it from a symptom specific, we look for the root cause. And what are the root causes? Once you know these root causes, you can take this more aligned action, because there's only really 4 main root causes. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. When you only focus on 2 of them, the other 2 root causes get so much love that they start to rebalance as well, and then everything starts to flourish. Now you're growing a beautiful, healthy, luscious tree that you never want to cut down. So what are these root causes? The 4 main imbalances behind these confusing array of health symptoms that so many women battle are mitochondria dysfunction. This is behind fatigue and brain fog, especially. Adrenal dysfunction. This is behind fatigue, anxiety, mood swings, cravings, brain fog, and belly fat. Nervous system imbalances. Behind fatigue, anxiety, mood swings, and brain fog. And then inflammation. The adrenals are unhappy. Well, they feed into inflammation. Inflammation feeds into the adrenal dysfunction. We create this fatigue cycle. When that fatigue cycle is really strong and powerful, it tells the mitochondria to turn off energy production. So mitochondria dysfunction starts. And when the adrenals are out of whack and they're dysfunctional, they start triggering the nervous system to shift into this constant state of fight or flight or freeze, which then puts more stress on the body and does feedback into the fatigue cycle. But ultimately, when we work on really focusing on the adrenal dysfunction, the inflammation together as a whole to start, you will notice significant improvements in all of those symptoms. Those leaves will start to fall, the branches will start to die off, you'll start to feel